There's more space. I can't emphasize how much of a difference it is with 3 boats, especially in this light winds. That extra space, they're a little bit more wind, so they're foiling a bit more comfortably. Potentially the change to Jason Waterhouse is the key.
We are seeing a lot of teams bring their flight controller on now to help with that 4-person on board. So Jason will fly the boat, and then they'll jump into the grinding and help the strategist, the female athlete, with the grinding, especially now that there's more wind. There's more pressure on the flight controllers. There wasn't much when they weren't foiling, but there's also more pressure on the grinding to make sure that you can move the wing and get the most out of the boat.
Settle in. We're a minute away from the event final here at the Spain Sail Grand Prix. It's Australia, the USA, and Denmark to do battle on the Atlantic.
Well, interesting that you make that point then, because USA, Jimmy Spithill will be flying the boat. Mac Agnese, he is a grinder, so there's more horsepower potentially at the front of the US boat. Could help in this initial acceleration phase. Late turn in there by ROCKWOOL Denmark. They block that. They're taking control of the situation. They're well lined up. Oh, racing. That means the boats are feeling late. USA, Jimmy Spithill, mistake outside the boundary. He's going to have to start behind the fleet. It doesn't look like that's going to be a problem right now. I think they're all late. That's great news for ROCKWOOL Denmark. The favoured end of the line is signified by our blue position triangle down there. That's the pole position mark, and Denmark, look at them heading up to it. It's 10 seconds to go. ROCKWOOL Denmark winded up. They're some 50 metres out ahead. 5 seconds to go. How's your timing, Nikolai Serhested, as he comes in? Watch for the line to turn white. Clear start. Big mistake by Australia, big mistake by USA, and ROCKWOOL Denmark, they're going to be in first position at Mark 1.
And the Dane magic continues in the event final. Look at that start, the biggest they've seen all weekend long as they approach mark number 1 in the event final. It is Denmark, Australia, and the USA, and the Danes have been spotted a huge lead right off the gate.
Here we go, first Italian down now. It's time to keep it simple. What's the heart rate like on board that Danish boat? First time they've led one of these finals for a while. It was season 3 back in Plymouth where they last led, but now they've got a chance to keep it simple. It's lighter winds in under that Cadiz shoreline. We can see the speed dropping off for ROCKWOOL Denmark. What are the boats behind going to choose to do? It's about minimising manoeuvres, I think, right now. Australia stay following. Denmark are slow, though. They're off the foils. USA first to turn. Could stay foiling on board the US boat. Can they keep it up in the air? It's close, really close. Jimmy Spithill on the handles there. He's done a fantastic job of staying foiling. Expect a lead change. It's got really light under the Cadiz shoreline.
USA, their wing has lit up green, which means they can pop and foil. 34, they should be foiling, no problem here. The problem with Denmark and Australia is they're fighting each other, and as soon as you get in a fight with another boat, you're in trouble.
Do not want to get in a fight with Tom Slingsby as well.
Well, and you could see, I think perhaps one of the advantages of being the boat behind is when a boat's ahead sail into less wind, you can see that and you can manoeuvre away. So it was possibly an obvious decision for the US, a less obvious decision for ROCKWOOL, but Jimmy Spithill, great decision making. Saw Denmark get slow, saw them get into less wind, and thought, I'm not going there. First to turn, stayed in more wind, and look at this, nearly a 200-meter gain.
So the Danes throwing away a beautiful start, and the Americans pick up the golden ticket. Prime opportunity for USA SailGP to take control of this race and possibly get their first event win final of the year.
We're on board here. It's going to be interesting here, though, because it was that Cadiz shoreline where the US are sailing to now that the Danes found less wind. So US are going back there. It's interesting how far they push in. Very, very light winds on board the Danes and the Australians at the moment.
I think what happens is when we see a split here, obviously USA have quite a nice lead, but if you do split from the other boats in this light wind, it's really hard to get back to the other side, so you're sort of committed. We saw USA love this side last time. That's what got them back into the race and essentially into the final.
So on this course, Stevie, can the Americans go as far as they dare go close to that shoreline where there's less breeze and then one shot straight to the next gate?
I think they're going to have to do 2 from here, but we can see the wind has rotated quite a long way round to the bottom right-hand corner of our screen. So at the moment, the Americans are sailing an angle nearly parallel to the shoreline, which means they're progressing up the course really well. What they can see that we can't is the wind on the water ahead of them. We can't see that. Now, you'd assume that if they're continuing that way, that's because they can see wind there. They're going to have to do a few manoeuvres. Here we go. They're setting up to manoeuvre now, and it's perfectly timed because Denmark are turning left here. They're going to have to be careful of the Australians. The Australians would be entitled to dive inside if it gets tight. could really play into the US hands, as Lisa says. When these two boats are fighting, it just gets worse and worse. I think Denmark will be round ahead, but they're a long, long way behind. Look at that, top left-hand side, 350 meters ahead. Oh, you can't help but feel for the Danish.
Well, we said that Denmark would want it most, Australia would want it most, but, you know, USA, they've had a pretty tough year, so I'm sure they really would love this win. And they're 24 kilometers per hour. If they hit that 28, they might be up and foiling, and they could just be away from there.
The Americans without the services of Hans Hanken, who is injured, and we wish him the very best in his recovery. And right now, they are going to give him a nice present to help with that recovery, because the Americans have a monster lead. Now, Denmark and Australia have both gone around that gate too, and we'll see if they get any kind of pressure to try to track down the Americans.
And if we look at the numbers down the bottom of our screen, foiling percentage 46 compared to Denmark and Australia at 22 and 23. So that is essentially what has got them out in front by hundreds of meters.
You see that US boat, he's trying to squeeze the boat as close to the wind as possible. He's trying to point it as close to the next gate as he can. Look at that, they're going slowly, but they're going straight where they want to go. And if they can just make it round this gate 3, then they're going to be in really, really good shape.
Such a tight margin here, Stevie, as they go to gate number 3. Jimmy is going to try to get as close as he can to that buoy on the right-hand side, and then he will turn and go downwind, and he should get some more pressure. Lisa, have they learned their lesson from not going close to the shore now? Will they stay farther offshore, and will they be able to foil?
I think they'll stay further offshore, and what they will do is, because they have such a good lead, as soon as the next boat makes it to the mark, they'll calculate where they are on the course and whether they need to cover, essentially. But what I think we'll see here is we'll see one jibe and straight to the gate, and minimising manoeuvres in these conditions is absolutely key.
Well, and how much money are we giving to Philippe Presti back on shore? Paul Campbell-James said, what are the Danish up to? And it seems like that computer up in the Oracle Cloud, they did have the numbers, because it's a huge improvement by this US boat. As we can see, heading upwind, Australia are foiling. They're up and going, but it could be a bit too little too late in terms of the race for the final. But points matter for the season, and the Australians will want to be ahead of Denmark, that's for sure.
Oh, this has got to be painful, as the Australians and the Danes are still heading upwind. The Americans foiling, going downwind as their lead continues to grow with the speed that they're carrying, Stevie. This is a thing of beauty if you're a fan of Team USA. They needed a small break. They started the race off with a penalty at the back of the field, and then as the Australians and the Danes got together and did battle, the Americans shot past.
They did, and here we go. Australia just parked the boat straight in front of Denmark. Can the Danes stay clear? They're going to be sailing in turbulent wind from the Australian wing, but they're up and foiling, which gives them a few more options. They're nearly 700 metres behind the lead, but the battle for second will be real. Tom Slingsby does not like to lose any battles, and he now is not on the foil, but Denmark must keep clear. They've got to be careful here. The Australians can turn them up towards the wind as much as they want. Expect an aggressive move from Tom Slingsby. Turns it up hard. Look out here. ROCKWOOL Denmark, there's going to be a potential incident. That was so tight. Slingsby, that was aggressive. Really, really aggressive. Trying to just push the Danes up into the air.
And look at this, the Americans at gate 4, they are already heading back upwind. Not a lapping situation, but Jimmy Spithill now can take chances out on the course lead. He's going to go closer to the shore, possibly seeing some pressure out there.
I think we have seen the day change quite a lot. As we said, the wind has rotated around. It's more pressure than we saw, more wind than the previous race, and it seems to suit the USA team.
As the Americans continue to sail away, let's go down on the water. Jenny Tulloch, you've got the best seat in the house. I know you saw this coming.
I don't think anyone saw this coming with Team USA out in the back with a penalty off the start, but maybe Ben Ainsley saw it yesterday when he said he had horrible starts and he almost wished instead of being in the pack, he was just out in the back where he could be clear and make his own decisions, and that's ultimately what happened for Jimmy Spithill and Paul Campbell-James, just being able to jibe at that first mark and run away with it. But fun to see that little match race scenario just then with ROCKWOOL Denmark SailGP team in Australia trying to be aggressive, but Nikolai, you know, he's also world match racing champion, so he could just pick enough distance to stay high enough to foil over the top of them to avoid Tommy and not get the penalty. And you know, it's hard to stay ahead at the moment, but it looks like they're still staying ahead. They're still foiling, at least on this downwind.
And you talk about lonely, out in the middle of the Atlantic, almost all by themselves is Team USA. The Americans going to mark number 5. They'll make that turn on that gate, and there's the finish line. just up against the wall, and it'll be celebrations for the Stars and Stripes as Jimmy Spithill and company, four-person crew, Stevie, they get it done. They took the chance with Jimmy Spithill driving and flying the boat.
They're doing a great job. They've made the choice, tactical chase. They can see the power going in on the handles there. Erica Reinecke and Mac Agnese really putting down the horsepower. That means you can trim the wing a lot more. You can get the maximum out of the boat. And look, they're pretty happy on board there. They were so close in Taranto, Todd, but right now it's looking pretty good.
They are the new fearsome foursome of the Atlantic Ocean. It's Jimmy Spithill and the USA SailGP team. They come to Spain and they claim the victory.
Bosh! Perfect. What a landing in front of the fans, and what a race they put together there.
From a penalty in the start box to victory by a massive distance. Look at this. That's how far back second and third is, with Denmark just getting around that gate. And the Americans are going to have plenty of time to celebrate before the other members of the final come across the line. Lisa, that was a dominant performance just when you thought it was all ROCKWOOL, the darlings of Cadiz, and they get tangled up with Australia, and it's game on.
Well, in the end, you only need to win one race, and the USA team did that. If we take you back to Cadiz last year, they just missed out. It was a photo finish with France, so a little bit of a revenge there, and, you know, fantastic to see. I think it's also these three-boat finals. You've got to stay out of trouble, and when you get hooked in these battles, it just lets the other boat sail away. But it's exciting for us to watch different battles throughout the fleet, I think. And overall season points, we know every point counts. We saw the final last year. You know, 1 point decides who's in that top three. So they will fight all the way to the end here, Australia and Denmark.
Turning on board the Australian boat there, Nina Curtis on the grinder. She's got to run across and get ready to pull that big wing back in. Denmark straight in front, aggressive slam dunk maneuver there from the Danish ROCKWOOL team, but it's too little too late. Second place is better than third, so they'll try and make the most of that. But after such a perfect start, heartbreak for them. Clinical from the USA, though. They saw the other boat sailing into less wind. They reacted quickly. They reacted correctly, and that's what it's all about. Teacup, we say in England, thinking correctly under pressure, and that is exactly what Jimmy Spithill did.
So they are fighting for positions on the podium, and it looks like Denmark will have the speed as they are up and fully now, as the green on top of that mast shows they are up and fully. And Australia, as much as Tom Slimby wanted to get the victory, he will not get it. It'll be another third for them. So on the season, they go second, third, second, third, have yet to taste the champagne out on the boat in the celebration as ROCKWOOL comes through, and they will finish in second place, still in hunt of their first victory. Remember, they finished second in Los Angeles, so a second in Los Angeles and a second in Spain for the Danes. A great showing, consistent sailing across the board, but they finished behind the Americans. That is true. Denmark, you just have to win San Fran for the big payoff, and a big wave to the fans that turned out here. Huge crowds on the seawall. Australia will have to look now to Dubai in the Middle East as we say goodbye to Europe. But the Aussies still out in front in the overall Season 4 standings. They are consistent, Lisa, and they do finish in third.
I think they'll be disappointed with third. I think they've really been gunning for a win. And with this team, they are mostly mad at themselves when they make mistakes. And I think that battle with Denmark, that, you know, they were in a controlling position. If they stayed on the foils, they could have got that. Yep. So I think they'll be disappointed with that mistake.
What a show as the win comes in just in time. And in the event final, it's the USA that gets the win, followed by Denmark and Australia. I thought at that point they were done. There was just no way they could come back, and here they are celebrating, getting ready to pop the champagne with the mayor of Cadiz, no less, Bruno Garcia, out on the boat to present the trophy.
Oh, it's going to be a great moment. It's a shame, really, their coach, Philippe Presti, can't be out there. I mean, they didn't mention that. The changes they made between race 5 and the final, there was clearly a lot of learnings. They learnt them well, but perhaps it was when opportunity presented itself, they took it. And they get to enjoy this moment, Todd.
And there is the Honorable Mayor of Cadiz, Bruno Garcia. He will present the trophy. Jimmy's like, nope, nope, hand it off. We're going to get Erica.
He wants the champagne, that's why.
Jimmy's had enough trophies in his day. He doesn't need another one. I think, Lisa, to your point, it was so great the way they made the decisions they did and bringing Erica on. They put a lot of faith in her.
Yeah, I mean, Erica is a fantastic strategist and a great sailor, so I'm sure she definitely deserves to hold that wheel.
Wraps up the Spain Sail Grand Prix Andalusia Cadiz as the Americans celebrate on the Atlantic. On behalf of Stevie Morrison, Lisa Darmanin, and Jenny Tulloch, I'm Todd Harris saying muchas gracias, Cadiz.